Hey everybody, welcome. Let's get going. Um, kind of a somebody sent me a message during the episode to say it's a bit trippy, the episode, and we are on episode 12 at the moment. Thanks very much for joining. Episode 12, 10 people at the start of the episode. Yeah, look, this episode seemed like chaotic. There was a lot happening. There was a lot going on. The vote out last week of Sipe coming back to the island. Obviously, Jacques felt a bit touched on his feelings because he didn't know that that's the way that they were going to go. And he mentions that he would have voted with them, but I'm not sure that he would have. Um, they were scared that Jacques would have played his idol in that moment. We've seen him sort of panic in that moment, and it was the first couple tribal councils, and he played his idol incorrectly, where he could have saved Ting Ting in that moment by playing the idol for Ting Ting. So I think he still has that residual from that mess up, where he accidentally screwed up playing his idol. So I don't know if he would have played it for Sipe. I don't know. He says he wouldn't have, but in that moment, I don't think you actually know what you would do. So it's interesting to see that fallout. Of course, Dante's angry again. When is he not angry? That for me is his go-to emotion. It's just complete and utter anger. And I get it. It's frustrating, but when you see people responding to it in a way that people have responded to him, he would have had to have changed somehow. And it seems as if he didn't pick up on those social cues. So again, he's angry with the vote. Sipe gone, which I don't know why he's angry about. It didn't really hurt him. He was still on the bottom. He's still without hope. The only person he really trusts is Maba, which is interesting because she was one of the people on the out. So besides that fallout of the vote, I think people quite stoked with themselves with the huge blindside that they did. And again, I think Rob was the big mastermind of that vote out. And for me, I mentioned last time that moment where Rob convinces Sipe to give him the idol and make her believe that it was her idea. For me, was the moment of that episode last time. So he really did step up. I had thought he had been in control for a long time. I wasn't a huge fan of his. I'm still not a huge fan of him, but I did have to tip my hat to that play. I thought it was really exceptional for him. So, we head into the episode. Dante still putting targets on his back. I just want to see if there's anything that's come up. Yep. Okay, nothing there so far. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them on there. We'll get to them as we go along. Let's get straight into it. The elimination, or it's not an elimination challenge, it's the reward challenge, but it had elimination stages to it. I don't think ever had one like that. Yeah, Mel. Mel says to me, I feel like he's more angry that no one wants to play with him. Yeah, I think he's got this idea that his way is the right way. That he dictates to people, he yells at people, you should vote this way, and it's just not the way to deal with people in a social game. So he did get angry and frustrated that people weren't seeing his logic. But I've mentioned many times before, and I learned this lesson on Survival, is that logic is subjective, and what you think is the smartest thing in that moment, other people don't agree with you. So, like, I remember the point for me, it came up when people wanted to vote out me. Well, I didn't know they wanted to vote out me, but it was so logical for me that we should vote out Martinez, and that other people didn't see that. That was like a bizarre thought to me, that logically this man is so disruptive at camp. He is pushing everybody's buttons, including mine. They wanted to vote me out because of the way I was responding to him and causing friction in the camp. But for me, logically, it was that we should vote him out because he is the cause of the problem. but the logic wasn't sound for everybody else. The logic was subjective. So what everybody else had, their background, their ideas, their objectives in the game, the logic is not across the board. It is completely subjective. So Dante wanted people to play with him, and he was angry and lashed out and yelled at people and spoke down to people because he thought his way was right. He lacked in the social game, and that's unfortunate. And it's funny because he really held, he was upset with people who only had social games. He was calling out Jeffrey and Marba for playing such strong social games, and that is the basis of this game. You cannot dominate it physically because at some point people will take notice and vote you out. So if you don't have a social game like Dante, you're going to struggle. So anyway, let's move on to the elimination challenge. I started chatting about it. It's elimination. I keep calling it an elimination challenge. It's a reward challenge, but it had elimination stages on it, which I quite like because you have little bursts of competing and trying to get through to the next round. With this one, they had sort of an obstacle course to get a pipe over a rope challenge. I like it because you don't have to throw yourself in. We had one similar, except we had to take ourselves through the rope challenge, and my boobs got me stuck. Also, I was too short to jump over the things. So a number of things held me back, but it's all good fun. But this one, they had to move the pipe through. And what I like about it was really quite open, the challenge. Obviously, Dante is incredible in challenges, and he sort of streaked ahead sort of took an early lead. He was closely followed at the first point by Steffi, I think. Anyway, he made it through, and what I loved about it is Letitia made it through, or almost made it through, and if you weren't cheering for Letitia, I mean, what the hell? So they had to get these pipes through to the end. The second part was they had to balance these pipes, which I don't know how difficult it was, but Rob was like struggling just to get them to stand up. And I know sometimes the challenge looks a lot more basic than it actually is in reality. But he really did seem to struggle with that challenge. And then they had to take those pipes and build the puzzle. And Dante, I'll tell you this, when you start a challenge, you get taken through the challenge step by step by the challenge creator and the challenge producer. Her name is Valerie Groenewald, and she will take you through step by step. One of the things they tell you is that if you have to force a piece of the puzzle into the puzzle, it's not the right piece. And I've learned that the hard way as well. Once you got it stuck in, you couldn't get it out again. And we were seeing Dante struggling with that puzzle. He had quite a lead over Jacques. Jacques came in and he was second, and he started his puzzle, and we all know that Jacques' strengths are those puzzles, and Dante was really, really struggling to get those puzzle pieces out. And obviously they did have to dig it out of the sandpit and stuff like that to move on. But I don't know, maybe there was a little bit of sand on his puzzle pieces or what have you, but the three people made it through to play in the game, and Dante he gave himself quite a lead, but he did struggle when he had to try and get one of the pieces out. I loved that puzzle. I'd never seen one where you had to build the puzzle and finish the logo with little pieces, little cylindrical pieces, which is cool. And if you don't know and you didn't pick up from the challenge, what would have happened is those cylinders all were the same length, but they couldn't fit in all the holes because some of the holes are shallower than others. We had it in a staircase that we had to build, where all of the pieces, you think, oh, you're going to put the longest one over there and the shortest one over there, but the problem is that each hole is not the same length. So you have to then figure out which one goes where. So that's always a little tricky vibe, trying to figure out what piece needs to go where. So it looked simpler than it really was, and but it really, really, you could see his dogged determination to just win that challenge. He was not gonna let go at all. And my favorite part of the episode actually was when Dante wins, and he's only a few seconds ahead of Jacques. Well, that's what the edit showed, and I'm pretty sure it's probably really accurate. he finishes his puzzle just before Jacques had said, or just after, yeah, Jacques says something like, Nico, I'm close, so that he needs to be like ready to say Jacques wins the challenge. And in that moment, Dante wins. So Dante then wins the challenge. And if you're a fan of Survivor, you know, you're never going to go on a reward by yourself. That's just not going to happen. You're either going to you'll never just go with somebody else. It'll always be minimum 3 people, unless it's like final 4, final 5. At this point in the game with 10 people in, you're definitely going to be taking 2 other people. So at the start of this challenge, if you don't have those names in your head, you need to figure it out. And for me, I've always said that I thought if you're not in there to stir and to cause trouble and to make things seem as fair as possible, my suggestion would always be to take the person who came second. So that would have been Jacques. However, Dante wanted to go by himself, and you can see when Nico sort of asks him, why are you struggling with this? He's like, no, I would have preferred to go by myself. Just like what? But then I find it interesting. So he takes Letitia. So first he chooses Mike. Then he takes Letitia and Maba. Which I mean is not surprising at all, but if you think about it, actually quite smart. He knows that you're going to go to a challenge. Nico mentioned that you're going to be fed. You're going to be staying away from camp, so you're going to get a solid night's rest, which I can tell you is absolute gold. The fact that you can remove yourself from the game and take a break mentally, you can eat, you can recharge and get a proper night's sleep. That lack of sleep, I can tell you, is one of the most difficult things to deal with on Survivor. With the hunger, the lack of sleep, and like no privacy at all, it's some of the hardest things that you go through. I didn't sleep for the first 5 days in Survivor, like 5 days without any decent sleep. It was hectic. So to have a night's sleep where you've got a mosquito net, you've got a pillow, you've got something soft to lie on. In fact, it might have been really difficult for them to sleep on those things, given that they've been so uncomfortable up until now. That was the reward. And he makes the decision to take people who I think he's obviously looks at and doesn't see as threats in the next immunity challenge. So he takes people who are going to get fed and it's not going to make a difference. Had he taken Rob or Steffi and they get a decent meal and the challenge is a huge physical challenge, then he's basically put them at an advantage as well. So he wants to win. He's going to eat. He's going to sleep. He's going to be stronger going into the next immunity challenge if it is a physical challenge. So the other part of his win was he gets to decide who to take to islands or who to send to Islands of Secrets, and he chooses Durao, which I think Durao has been to Islands of Secrets more than anyone at this point in the game. And he sends Durao to Islands of Secrets, which, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not sure why he made that decision, but again, maybe he knows that it could be an advantage, could be something good, and he doesn't want somebody like Rob, like Quibus, to have that advantage going into a immunity challenge if it were a physical challenge. So Durao hasn't been the best at challenges, and he said that himself. And so maybe he thinks that giving Durao an opportunity to go through might help Dante in the immunity challenge come the next day or the following 2 days or however long it was in between. So yeah, for me this reward was absolutely incredible. I think Rabbit is causing chaos here, apologies. It's one of those challenges pretty much like the previous one where it's Rabbit, stop it. No, the people are here. Sorry. It's one of those rewards that will stay with you forever. An opportunity to go and sit with a few of the people from the game. Rabbit, come on now. Come on. Sorry, everybody. To go and sit with people from the game and to remove yourself from the game and watch those Samoan dances and to have that kind of meal. And I mean, Dante was crying. Tani Letitia kind of sat there just in awe of what she was seeing. And it was an absolutely special moment for all of them. And knowing what happens to Dante at the end of the episode, I'm really happy that he got to go on that reward and the previous one, because those two for me have been absolutely incredible. And if this production team carries on with this kind of reward wins, the actual rewards, it's going to be incredible to see what they've got lined up, because these last two have been like what you would see on like a competition where you live out one of your dreams. It's just incredible to see the absolute beauty of Samoa, and they are really showing it to us, and I love that reward. But for me, that moment where Dante sits and he does a confessional at the reward, where he says, I took these people because maybe they would vote for me, or they would think better of me, or basically saying that I'm giving these people something, maybe they'll give me something back. But I find it interesting because he just said at the start of the challenge when he won, at the end of the challenge when Nico says you've won, you've got to take people, he just said, I wanted to go by myself, I don't want to take any of these people. So now pick a lane. I just found that contrast very funny, that he thinks that people are going to forget what he said when he had to choose people, and then taking them, somehow they're going to give him a vote or try and save him. It was just a funny moment. I really enjoyed that. They again come back to the island, and there's that moment again with Steffi and food, where they decide and talk about the food, and they are all so pissed off that Dante is winning again. Now 3 challenges back to back. I think, sure, it must be exceptionally frustrating, especially given the fact that Rob and Steffi and they're people who come into this game physically thinking that they're going to dominate, and somebody like Dante keeps beating them. And it's one thing to win an immunity necklace, and it's another thing at those rewards. When you see somebody go off to eat and it's not you, you are gutted. And they've come back to the island and they are just completely annoyed. I was going to say something else, but they are just completely just frustrated with the fact that they can't beat Dante at these rewards. But again, for me, and I've spoken about this a couple of times, is that attitude of entitlement, right? They feel like it's a personal attack on them, and that Dante, it's like they should be the ones who get to eat. Why? That for me is something that I can't get over with. It keeps coming up with Rob, with Steffi, to an extent Nicole, in fact quite a bit of Nicole, but with her it's more about people respecting her and behavior towards her. She feels like she's entitled to a certain degree of respect when she's done nothing to earn it. So the original Saola members, for me, have this chip on their shoulder, and it's not going to help them at any stage, because at the moment they are being perceived a certain way, and I don't think anybody's going to give them a vote at this point. I don't think that if Rob makes it all the way through, depending on who he's going to sit next to, if Steffi makes it all the way through, if Nicole makes it all the way through, look at the people who they're sending to the jury. None of those people are going to give them votes. If anybody like Mike or Jacques or even Maba, if any of those people make it through, they've got such great connections on the jury that people are now they're going to have to think about that, who they are sending to the jury, and if those people are going to be advocates. I don't know if you watch some of the videos that Mnet put up on their site, talking to the members of the jury. But one of the things that Jeffrey said in his video was that he's going to be an advocate for Mike. So if Mike goes really far, you've got somebody who's well-spoken, who knows the game, who understands the role of the jury, who understands the gravitas of that moment and the responsibility of that jury. You've got Jeff there. batting for you. And I think that is a strong thing to think about with who are you voting out, when and how you've treated them up until that moment. So it's going to be interesting to see how things like taking a person on a reward. A big one is the loved ones challenge, and if you choose the loved ones, how much favor will that get you if that person gets voted out and they have to vote for you at the end. So all those dynamics have to be taken into consideration. But Dante just doesn't have any social game to do that. So unfortunately, he just had no tact. I had that problem as well sometimes. So, but again, talking about the food, Steffi complaining. Was it just me, or was Rob quite gone from this episode? There wasn't a lot of focus on Rob this episode. It seemed quite chaotic. Apologies if I can't keep the stuff straight. Let's see if there's any comments, questions that's come up. Loudmouth says, I don't think the Durao decision was right. The advantage will find its way to Rob, who Dante wants out. Corvus or Jacques may have been better. You don't want to give Jacques any kind of advantage at a immunity challenge, because he's so good at stuff that it could be, especially if it's a non-physical challenge, you don't want to give him that advantage. And Quibus is quite good at these things anyway. Remember, you want to win at all costs, so you're going to try and give it to somebody you think is going to be the weak person at the challenges. And Durao, I think, has been playing, I don't know if he's not smart. Look, he's been playing a bit of a bumbling fool on the show, and I don't know, I think that everybody else has picked up on that. I will tell you, when I saw him take the advantage, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but in fact, let's chat about it now. Durao goes to Islands of Secrets. He gets an option to either take an advantage in the immunity challenge, or he can sit that out. The problem is, if he takes the advantage, he has no vote at Tribal Council. And I've spoken a number of times about how important Tribal Council is. I would have been really cut up about the decision to give up my vote for an advantage. Knowing, this is about me, by the way, my game. If I was given that opportunity to get an advantage in a challenge, I'm not sure I would have taken it, because I know that I wasn't really strong in challenges. And that importance of my vote is massive. That is the whole reason you're in the game. But to give up a vote, you must know 100% that you are comfortable, and that your alliance is 100% solid. Because to give up a vote with this many people in the tribe still, remember they're 10 at the start, that means that they could have split votes. They could have really shaken things up, and had they known that that's what he got an advantage, and that he had to give up a vote. But he does really well, actually, for Durao, who oftentimes is the culprit of loose lips. And he does really well. The only person he tells is Rob. I did not expect him to be able to... Look, once he took that advantage, I was like, okay, cool. Good call for you. You know, you do pretty well at some of the challenges. But when I saw the amount of things that guy had to remember, with no food in your belly, no sleep, just emotionally raw, completely, I was like, there's no way that Durao is going to be able to nail this. They get to the challenge the next day, and it is a memory game, pure and simple. We had something similar, but we would have to go. We had to go and get our blocks through an obstacle course, carry them back, and then we did the memory challenge. The problem with that was that the physical dominant players did very well anyway, because I was trying to carry blocks. I could only carry 4, I think, at a time, whereas Vanner and Tom, they got longer arms, bigger bodies. They were carrying like 6, and I think there were only 6 blocks. So they really had an advantage, because there was that physical part of the challenge, and then the memory game. I was never good at those memory games anyway. In fact, I don't even think I stacked 1 block before they had won the challenge. I think I got 1. So this memory challenge for me was much cooler, because it was such a leveling playing field. All they had to do was remember the blocks. And Dante did well. Dante really did well. He was up against Quibus. There was a moment where I think the final people were sort of Quibus, Jacques, Nicole, and Dante. Everybody else kind of dropped out as they went along. But that final one, I don't know, how many blocks were there? 10 that they had to remember in a sequence? It was hectic. And Dural kept calm. Quibus, I think when he went out, he said, oh, he fell asleep or something. It fast asleep or something, I think he said. Yes, my Afrikaans is suiwer. And then Nicole also had a moment, a wobbly, and finally it was Jacques and Dural, was it? And he nailed it. No, it was... Anyway, I can't remember the sequence of when they went out. But yeah, it was a really, really good challenge. And he backed himself, which is important. Yeah, so... There we go. It's funny because as soon as he won, everybody knew that he had got an advantage. They were like, there's no way Dural could have won that. And so everybody knew he had an advantage, but it didn't really come up sort of in a group dynamic about what he had to give up to get that advantage. So yeah, Dural wins immunity necklace, which didn't really have that much impact on the game. Had it been somebody like... Dante or Maba, it may have been a little bit more interesting, but unfortunately the vote, look, there was a lot of talk about flushing idols, and Jacques is in an alliance of 7, right? But that 7 is all gunning for him to vote out his and get his flushes idol. So there was a moment actually where I thought Mike did really well, where he tried to convince Jacques that the vote might be for him. There was a moment where Mike and Jacques had a conversation in one of the previous episodes that said, look, let's just watch out for each other, and if you hear anything, let me know, and if I hear anything, I'll let you know. So Jacques and Mike come together, and he sits down next to him, and he doesn't want to outwardly tell him that something's happening or whatever, but he just says, keep your eye open. I may be wrong, but just keep your eyes open. And Jacques seems to take in the information. But that's, I actually thought that Mike did it really well. And if it were me, I think I might have played my idol that day. A lot of the conversations at Tribal Council was about strength and targets, people who do really well at challenges, and a lot of it seemed to lean towards Dante, except there was a moment with Jacques and Steffi at Tribal Council, where Steffi accuses Jacques of lying and says half-truths, that Jacques has been saying things that are untrue and that, deceiving people and lying to people. And there's a moment where Jacques stops and says, hold on a minute. You all voted the previous episode for CPay and nobody told me. Therefore, you lied to me and said we are voting this way and you all went that way. So is that also not half-truths and deception? And Steffi kind of had to backtrack a little bit and be like, oh no, but we're talking about threats in the game. And yeah, it was an interesting moment in that game. And I think that Jacques is going to come out swinging next. He is in a position right now where those loose change players, as Dante calls them, and I love that analogy, there are enough of them to cause an upset. And hello, Jakey. I'm well, thanks. There are enough of them to cause a little bit of a stir at the moment. So the next episode for me is going to be absolutely crucial. I just want to get to 2 things that have come up. Let me just see if there are any questions that have come up. Yeah, I've dealt with Taryn wanted to know in my throw forward to the live where I got the hat from. I was actually wearing Tony's hat. There are two moments that I want to talk about quickly. Can we just have a moment to talk about Jacques and why his hair is still purple? Nobody else has paint on them still. Why does Jacques still have crusty paint still in his hair? I saw there was a moment in the episode when Nicole was washing his back. Nicole, why could you not just scrub his head with some sand and get rid of the damn purple that is growing probably its own ecosystem on his head? I do not... Oh, what is happening? I mean, you're filthy dirty. I get it. But please, can we address the purple hair, Jacques? Or cover that up. You have a buff for that. And a cap. It's not a good color on your hair, bro. And the other comment that has stuck with me is a moment where Nicole, Steffi, and Quibus are lying on the beach. And they mention, Steffi says, well, at least I'll go home with a tan. And the first thing that came to mind, in my mind, was everybody on my episode and my season went home who had a tan. There was a lot of sun tanning happening. And I don't know if it's a correlation, but it seems in a social game to me that unless you are sun tanning with your alliance or sun tanning with other people who aren't in your alliance to try and get information, sun tanning is actually not a great idea. Anyway, I just thought that moment she said, at least I'll go home with a tan, my immediate thought was everybody who had a tan on our episode went home. And we'll see. In my prediction, if maybe there's something in there, we'll see. I mean, I had a tan. I'm not sure how much of it was dirt, but I certainly didn't spend my time lying out on the beach. I was paranoid. I was around the fire. I was constantly in camp trying to see who was doing what, who was saying things. So yeah, interesting. I don't know. We'll see. The votes were quite interesting again. Obviously, we know the outcome. One of the biggest characters on the game at this point, Dante, gets voted out. We have Durao with a no vote. But 5 votes against him were cast by Rob, Nicole, Quibus, Steffi, and Jacques. 3 votes were cast against Jacques. And you could see that he was like, whoa. It was Mike, Maba, and Letitia, and 1 against Quibus, and that was Dante. Durao had no vote, obviously. I thought it was very interesting that Dante voted for that Dante voted for Quibus. Had Dante voted for Jacques, it would have been a lot more interesting, because there were 3 votes against Jacques, and if he had had 4, it would have been 4-5. That would have been a lot more interesting, especially with that no vote. All they would have needed to do was to flip. But I found it interesting that Dante voted for Quibus. Again, it just showed that he was not anywhere present in his social game to know that everybody was voting for Jacques. I don't know where the vote for Quibus came from, but anyway, that was the votes. So then 9 people left, but there's also another. Was Jacques crying at tribal council? I don't know. He seemed to be like wiping his face a lot, and I don't know if he was like overcome with emotion, if he was really thankful that he slipped through, or he was overwhelmed because had there been more votes, he was sitting in tribal council with an idol in his pocket. So I think the throw forward to the next episode, it's shots fired. It's gonna be hectic in the next one, so I'm very, very much looking forward to Thursday. How much longer can Rob stay? How much longer can Steffi stay? These are two of the biggest threats. Now that Dante's gone, where are they going to hide? Dante had been their target for so long. Now that he's gone, what's going to happen? Loudmouth says, my prediction is Jacques and Quibus on one side versus Rob, Steffi, and Nicole and Durao. Mike, Maba, and Letitia will become the power players. I agree. I think that Jacques and Mike is definitely going to do something. He can't sit around for too much longer because he has to build, all of them have to start building up survivor resumes. And I think that he's going to want to start making big moves. And he's been a part of big moves, but he hasn't created them himself. And I think that Jacques and Mike are going to want to do something. I don't know where Quibus stands. So Jacques and Quibus on one side versus Rob, Steffi, and Nicole and Durao. I'm not sure where Quibus stands. Quibus kind of is somebody to me who is going to go wherever his bread is buttered. He doesn't seem so strong in this, in understanding the strategy of the game. I know. Oh, this is also something that came up to me this episode. There was a moment where somebody mentioned it was when they were sitting on the beach and how he's been able to hide the fact that he's such a big Survivor fan. There was a moment in my recap last week where I mentioned that Quibus has hidden really well that he is this massive super fan of the game and that he understands the game. And I think somebody tried to speak down to him last week about the strategy and how he said, like, I know how to play this game. And somewhere it came up in the episode, and I'm picking up on the fact that he is this strategic threat, but so far he hasn't been able to do anything or make any big moves, and he's kind of just been coasting along, going along, which is great. But there comes a point where you need to step up and start playing the game. So I'm interested to see in the next episode where that's going to go, because now there are 9 people left. That is a 4 and a 5. And if you gotta play hard to get the 5 now. But at the moment, those loose change players, as Dante has called them, are Letitia, Maba, you've got Mike, you've got Jacques, where Quibus, where my thing. I really hope that those 5 players, Maba, Mike, Jacques, Quibus, and Letitia, that they team up and vote out Rob. Because if they don't, he's going to still have a huge hold in this game. The next target will be Steffi because she's so strong. Steffi's going to go rogue. If Rob is gone, Steffi, Nicole, they don't have any other relationships. If you think about it, Rob is the one that is holding that alliance together. He has the social connection with Quibus. He has the social connection with Mike. He has the social connection with Jacques. Steffi and Nicole don't have those things with people. Nobody really trusts them. So it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, you're correct. Bianca says that it was a convo between him and Rob, where Rob told him what to do and not to tell anyone. And then he made the comment about how to play the game. They were around the fire building it. Yeah. It was a little moment that I did take note of, and it reminded me of the comment that I made last week, that he's been able to hide. I don't know, from us, maybe it's quite clear on the island that he is the super fan, but he's sort of under the radar. When they talk about people, the fans of the game, they're talking about strategic threats like Jacques. Mike, I think, has been mentioned, but Quibus hasn't been mentioned. So I think that the next episode, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Do they target the Solar members? If they don't, they could go on an immunity run. So the next week, things to look out for is who's going to win immunity, what kind of challenges that's going to be. If it's going to be a physical one, Steffi might step up and take that one. At the moment, I don't think there's anybody who is who can give Steffi a run for her money. Maybe Rob, but Rob, if it's a challenge where it's your weight sort of or your height, or a one where you have to try and outlast somebody, I think Steffi's the person. So it's going to be interesting to see. Marius, you're very late. What is happening? I'm wrapping up, dude. Also, Rabbit is here, if you were wondering. So let's keep an eye on next week. Guys, are there any questions before we wrap up? Any comments that we need to get to? I felt the episode, there was a lot going on. But now there are 9 people. There's more time on each character that we can spend investing, finding out little information. The more people go, the more time there is for us to get confessionals, to get camp life interactions with people. So right. Melissa says, I'm not in favor of a strong Samoa finish, but it is pretty rare that an alliance stays strong from start to finish. 100%. It's going to be tough for them to stay strong. The only reason I say that is because they are such physical strengths that somebody's going to take notice. They can't go under the radar. And if people like Letitia or Maba or Durao want to win at things, they need to take out these people who are so strong. I think the end of this season is going to be fascinating because I have a feeling it's going to be those minnow players. It's going to be those loose change players. And then who do you vote for? They haven't all been front and center making big moves. And if somebody like Jacques goes out, because once Steffi Rob has been voted out, Jacques is next. He's too strong. He's got that advantage. So it's going to be interesting to see who finishes. Top 5 for me. It's all open up at the moment. A lot of comments. Let's just get to them before we wrap up. Laura, I'm wrapping up. I'm sorry. Mario says, sorry I'm late. You look lovely tonight going on a date. I'm not, but thank you for the compliments. Do you think Dante pulled Jacques down, i.e. that they were tied together? Had Jacques voted him out on the Merrill vote, would Jacques have been better off? No, I don't think so. I think Dante took focus off of Jacques. Dante was the big meat shield that Jacques needed for a while. But Jacques got to go out on his own now. Jacques managed to go under the radar for long enough for him to get in a position to start voting people off. I think that Miro wouldn't have wouldn't have taken focus off of Jacques as much as Dante did. So, final 3, who would I like to see? Letitia, Mike, and Durao. That would be my final 3. I think that'll be entertaining. Don't forget about Jacques Challenge Rewards deal where he will steal the family visit from someone. That's definitely not going to go down well with the tribe. Yeah, I did bring this up when he got that. There is this thought that he's going to outrightly steal somebody's loved ones challenge if they get there. If somebody else wins the loved ones reward, Jacques has won the opportunity to steal any reward. So even if it's not that one, he can steal any reward. So this week, had he decided that he wanted to go on that reward, he could have taken it from Dante. He wants to save it to the loved ones reward, which is a terrible idea to do because it will piss off so many people. However, there is that option, and this is what people think might happen. Jacques is very smart and very good at understanding this game. And what's happened in the past is you give that steal to somebody else. So say, for example, myself, Bianca, and Lara are at the Loved Ones Challenge, but I'm pretty good mates with Bianca and Lara. And what happens is I give that steal to Lara because her mom is there and I really want her to see her mom. I'm going to give her that opportunity to steal it. Then Lara will be the one to steal it from Marius. So she steals it from Marius. Now she's got an opportunity. Nico will say, who do you want to take with you? Obviously, Laura's going to choose me because I just gave her that opportunity to steal. Now, I don't look like the bad guy because Lara stole the reward. That is what people think they're going to do. He's going to give it to somebody else and hope that they take him and give him the opportunity to see his wife. If he makes it that far, that episode's going to be interesting to see what happens. Laura says, I'm rooting for Tani Letitia now that Dante is out. If Jacques makes it that far, I really hope he does so we can get to see how it plays out. He's definitely holding out for family visit. Durao still has to play his fake idol. Some more poor lion coming up. I forgot about his fake idol. That's going to be fun to watch. He's such a terrible liar. Such a terrible liar. Good point, Loudmouth. Good point. Let's see. He may be trying to avoid it just because he knows how bad of a liar he is. Maybe he's kept it in his underwear and he's lost it already. It's Doral. Anything is possible. Okay, officially wrapping it up. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Enjoy Thursday. Whew. Listen, during the episode, if you want to chat, drop me a message on Twitter. There's a lot of discussion that happens during the episode. My handle on Twitter is @Jeanne Michel. Or drop me a message on Instagram. We can chat there as the episode unfolds. If you missed the start, Marius, it'll be on YouTube in a few minutes. I'll upload it there. And any of the previous ones, if you've missed that, you can go out and get that. I think I've missed about 2 of them. Yeah, you can go and get them on my YouTube channel. When you go there, please will you just click subscribe. I need to get my followers up. Otherwise, YouTube don't care about me. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday. Recap. Mnet 101 and from 7 o'clock on Thursday on Mnet 101. Taryn, you're too late. It is now done. Bye, everybody.